I slowly lay down next to the bed. I turned around and that's when I noticed it coming from behind. I was startled. The object was very rigid. "Hello, my dear. Welcome to the channel. Get ready for an electrifying narrative full of twists and turns." Emily, a dedicated medical student, wins a trip to New York, but everything changes when her stepfather, Richard, decides to accompany her. Between sightseeing and deep conversations, an unexpected connection arises, transforming the journey into something neither of them could have foreseen. So, before we dive into this adventure, confirm your subscription to the channel and activate the bell. You don't want to miss the next stories, do you? Ready? Let's get started. My name is Emily. I'm 22 years old and I study at a public university. My life has always revolved around books and the pursuit of a brilliant career. Since I was a child, I dreamed of standing out academically, and college became my big stage. I live with my mother, a warrior woman and my greatest inspiration. However, our peaceful routine changed a little over a year ago, when she met Richard, who soon became my stepfather. Richard is an introspective man in his early 40s, extremely focused on work. Our contact has always been superficial. Even though we live under the same roof, our interactions were limited to brief, everyday conversations. For this reason, our relationship never occupied my thoughts. My attention was completely focused on my big goal, to graduate and build a promising future. Recently, my dedication was rewarded with something that seemed like a distant dream. I won a trip to New York, an award granted by the college for my academic performance. Everything paid for: accommodation, flights, tours. The idea of getting to know such a fascinating metropolis filled me with joy. However, along with the excitement came butterflies in my stomach. The prospect of traveling alone to another country, without anyone I knew around, began to scare me. I talked to my mother, who understood my concern, but because of work, he couldn't accompany me. That's when Richard stepped in, offering to go with me. At first, I was hesitant about the proposal, but I accepted, believing that it would be good to have someone I could trust by my side. When my mother suggested that Richard accompany me, I confess that I was torn. We didn't have a close relationship, and I didn't know what it would be like to spend so much time alone with him. On the other hand, the idea of facing an international trip completely alone scared me even more. After some adjustments, we decided that he would be my travel companion. He managed to take time off from work, and all the details were planned. On the day of departure, I woke up anxious and excited. It was my first time leaving the country, and my heart was beating fast. My mother took us to the airport and before saying goodbye, hugged me tightly, whispering, "Enjoy every moment, my daughter. You deserve it." With Richard by my side, I felt an unexpected sense of security. As soon as the plane took off, my heart raced as I watched the clouds out the window. I thought about how this experience could change my life. During the flight, Richard and I started talking more than ever. He told me stories about his travels as a young man, his favorite places, and even joked that he would teach me how to explore New York like a real traveler. When we arrived, I was amazed. New York was even more stunning than I had imagined. Richard took care of everything: hotel check-in, transportation, and tour itineraries. His ability to organize every detail surprised me and, in a way, made me grateful. It was a side of him that I had never noticed before. In the first few days, we explored tourist attractions together, such as Central Park, the Statue of Liberty, and the Empire State Building. Every corner felt like a new discovery. Richard, always attentive, made sure to make me feel comfortable. Little by little, I began to see him as someone other than the reserved man I knew. His understated humor and attention to detail created an unexpected closeness. One evening, as we were returning to the hotel after a long day of sightseeing, he suggested that we stop at a traditional pub for dinner. Sitting in a cozy corner, we began to talk about our lives like never before. He spoke openly about the beginnings of his relationship with my mother, his professional challenges, and even his dreams. I, in turn, shared my plans, fears, and insecurities that I had never revealed to anyone. That night was when something changed. I realized that behind the reserved man, there was someone deeply human, with a warm side that I had never had the chance to know. It was the beginning of a connection that would change everything between us. As the days went by, our time together in New York began to flow naturally. Richard proved to be the perfect travel companion, always organized, patient, and willing to explore every corner of the city with me. I began to notice how attentive he was, noticing small details like my favorite dish in restaurants or my love for photographing urban landscapes. Every gesture of his reinforced the security I felt having him by my side. Our days were filled with iconic outings. We visited the Museum of Natural History, walked through Times Square, and tried the famous street hot dogs. With each new destination, our conversations became deeper. I never would have imagined that Richard, someone I had always seen as distant and withdrawn, would have so many fascinating stories to tell. He talked about his youth, the places he dreamed of visiting, and even the challenges he faced before meeting my mother. One of the most memorable moments happened one morning at the Chelsea market. As we explored stalls selling crafts and traditional foods, he saw a silver necklace and said, "This one suits you." When he handed it to me, he added with a smile, "It's to remember this trip." I was surprised by the gesture. It was something simple, but full of meaning. From that moment on, I began to see him differently. The nights in the city also brought unique moments. One, in particular, has remained etched in my memory. We decided to have dinner at an Italian restaurant near the hotel. The atmosphere was cozy, with soft lights and soft jazz in the background. While we waited for dinner, Richard opened a bottle of wine and toasted, "To the trip, and to good company." We talked like never before. He asked me about my dreams, and I, in turn, heard stories that I would never have imagined he kept. With each glance we exchanged, I felt that something new was being born between us. On another occasion, while we were walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, a sudden downpour caught us off guard. Without thinking, Richard took off his coat and draped it over my shoulders. "So you don't get cold." It was a simple gesture, but it made my heart race. It wasn't just the care. It was the way he made me feel special. Halfway through the trip, after intense days, we decided to spend a quiet afternoon in Central Park. The place was serene, with the lake reflecting the reddish sky of the sunset. Sitting on a bench, Richard looked at me and said, in a softer voice than usual, "Emily, I've never had the chance to tell you how much I admire your strength and determination. You are incredible." The compliment, coming from him, left me speechless. My heart raced. There was something about that moment, an invisible tension, as if we both knew we were on the verge of something bigger. That night, after we returned to the hotel, something unexpected happened. I had just gotten out of the shower when I realized I had forgotten an extra towel. Without thinking, I called out, "Richard, can you bring me a towel, please?" When he appeared in the doorway, our eyes met in a different way. There was something in the way he looked at me, something that not even words could explain. The atmosphere between us changed. During dinner, every gesture, every smile, seemed to carry a deeper meaning. He said, in a tone that was almost whispered, "This trip has been special, and not just for New York." I knew exactly what he meant, because I felt the same way. The night I will never forget. Later, Richard came to my room to say goodbye, as he did every night. But this time, the air was different. As he stood in the doorway, hesitant, I felt that there was something more between us. Something that neither of us dared to say. My heart was beating so hard that I feared he might hear. It was then that, without thinking, I took a step forward. And, before I could regret it, we kissed. It was an intense kiss, full of desire and everything we had repressed over the last few days. It was as if all the tension that had been building up had finally found an outlet. When we pulled apart, he looked me in the eyes and whispered, "I shouldn't have done this, but I don't regret it." Neither did I. That night, Richard wasn't just my stepfather. He was the man who showed me a side of life, and of myself, that I had never known before. That night, after the kiss, the hotel room felt too small to contain what we were feeling. Richard looked at me with a burning intensity, his fingers tracing light circles on my wrist. "Emily, we shouldn't." But I cut him off, pulling him closer. "I know. But I want to." And then, it all happened too fast. His hands slid around my waist, pulling off my robe. My body trembled as his lips found my neck, each touch burning like embers. I lay down on the bed, and he came over me, his body warm and strong against mine. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice husky. In response, I hugged his back, pulling him closer. And then, he took me. Each movement was slow and deep, as if we were trying to stretch out this moment forever. I moaned, writhed, begged for more. "Richard, don't stop. Fill me." He obeyed, his rhythm growing wild, until we both lost control. When it was over, he rolled onto his side, panting, and pulled me against his chest. This shouldn't have happened. But his embrace wouldn't let go. The next morning, I woke up with his arms still around me. For a moment, we pretended nothing had changed. But when our eyes met, the truth was impossible to ignore. We spent the last day exploring the city in tense silence, as if we were trying to memorize every detail before it was all over. That night, on the flight back, Richard took my hand and whispered, "This is between us." I nodded. But inside me, something had awakened forever. In Brazil, we resumed our lives. He continued to be my mother's devoted husband. I, the studious daughter. But sometimes, when our fingers brushed as he made coffee, when he looked at me for a second longer than he should have, I remembered. I remembered the taste of him, the weight of his body on mine, the way New York turned us into strangers who knew each other inside out. And then, I smiled only to myself, because some stories should never be told. The end.